Hi, my name is Amalia Valle. I'm here in Miami at the Biohackers World Conference, and I'm here with David Korsunsky of Heads Up Health. So Heads Up Health is an app for tracking biohacking data, if I'm
You nailed it.
not mistaken. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
And how does it work exactly?
Yeah, good question. Well, whenever you're trying to measurably improve your health, the idea is to have some objective data that you can use to see, did the numbers improve or not? And the system is designed to capture numbers about your health. So some simple examples would be the blood tests from your doctor.
Yeah.
Or another example might be the scale that you step on every day, or measuring your blood sugar. These generate numbers. And the numbers we can use to measure before and after changes. The problem in healthcare in general, it's actually even worse in biohacking, is there's so many different ways to measure health that we end up with lots of numbers all over the place. And actually, all those numbers tell a story together. So our system is designed to bring all of your data into one central system. And then you can see everything together, and you can start to engage in different biohacks, if you want to call them that, and then do your before and after testing. So a good example might be, I am taking a new magnesium supplement to improve my sleep.
Yes.
Simple example, and there's some great ones on the market. So you would look at your Aura data or whatever you use to measure your sleep. There's lots of great devices out there. Let's say I start the experiment on October 1st and I take the supplement for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to look at the data from those 30 days compared to the period before I started the supplement. And we're looking to see, did the numbers improve? So that's what the software is designed to do. And we can pull in lots of different metrics because there's lots of different ways to improve your health. And everybody's coming at it from a different angle. Some people are biohacking because they're trying to manage a chronic illness or reverse a chronic illness. Some people are using it who are already the healthiest people in the world, trying to improve their biological age. Wow. So everybody's measuring different things. That's up to each person. What we created is the space for you to have your data so that you can figure out exactly what works for you.
That's really cool. And so will the app actually give you information or suggestions based on the data that you're putting in?
The app is really meant for you to come in and ask your own questions from the data. So because we support so many different use cases, we're not necessarily making recommendations per se, but what we give you are the tools to go in there and say, okay, I did X, run a report and show me, did the data get better or worse? So you still have to ask your own questions from the data, but we've made the tools very easy and accessible so that you can find the answer without having to look in a PDF file or copy some data into a spreadsheet, just so you can run some calculations on it. So we've just made it easier to bring the numbers together. You still have to ask the questions. We're not necessarily going to give you the answers per se, at least not with the current iteration of the software. There are new ways with things like AI where it will be able to find those signals and notify you automatically.
Oh, wow.
But the system is not at that level yet.
But still, it's cool that it does give you a report, and then you can even bring that into your doctor or health practitioner. Mm-hmm. It's a really cool concept because I have a chronic illness. I have Hashimoto's, so I'm constantly doing blood work and something like this.
You're measuring those
cool.
thyroid antibodies. You're measuring
exactly,
and you're measuring them over time. And imagine if you had every single test on one graph going as far back as possible, and then you can start to even see the data before you got diagnosed.
Yeah.
And there may have been a period where your numbers were in a very healthy range.
Yeah.
And then there was a point where the numbers started to deteriorate. Obviously, that was leading up to a diagnosis.
Right.
But when you can see a 10 or 20 year timeline and see the 5, 10, 15, 20 years when you were in the normal range.
Yes.
And then start to say, okay, what was different in this period? And then here's where the numbers started going down. One of the problems is that in traditional healthcare, they don't even have the tools to look at the historical trend line.
Not at all.
When I started working on this system myself, I called all my old doctors and I asked them to send me all my lab data. And I could see numbers that had been going in the wrong direction for 10 years, but they were slow, subtle changes that you wouldn't pick up just glancing at it. But when I put the data together, I could actually see trends that my doctor couldn't even see.
Wow.
And that's when you realize, like, whoa, there is so much more information that I need to take responsibility for, because they're not looking at it that way. They're not looking at like, well, how long has it been trending down? And they're not going to call your old doctors and make a spreadsheet for you to figure out exactly. So when we can provide this service, that's what it is, to people, it gives them incredible amount of control. Actually, you know, one of the cool things now is we're in this era where we as individuals have far more information on our health than the doctor does.
Yes.
We have way more data. We're looking at the data every day. We're optimizing for the data every day. So the whole paradigm's kind of completely flipped around where it's like, actually, doc, let me tell you when things started going wrong. I've got the whole history here. So that's the service we want to provide, is being able to make proper use of that information.
No, it's such a cool concept. I mean, I'm a health coach, and I tell my coaching clients all the time, get blood work and make sure you get a copy of it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, your doctor can do blood work, but sometimes, you know, there's subtleties in the blood work. And, you know, like you might be slightly low in vitamin D3, right? But you're still within normal lab ranges.
Correct, yeah.
So to be able to like bring that to someone who's going to actually help you analyze it, that's incredible. And so how did you get started on this journey towards creating the app? Like what first interested you in biohacking and wellness in general?
Well, if I looked at the work I was doing professionally, I was working in information technology, and part of my job was to go into these large companies, you know, banks, hospitals, large corporations, and I would go in there and I would collect reams and reams and reams of data from their computer systems. And what they were paying me to do was to analyze this data and tell them how to make their systems run faster and more efficient. So professionally, I got really good at that. Around 2010, 2011, I started getting into biohacking. It was actually Dave Asprey, like the early days of Dave Asprey, when it was like the early version of his podcast and his blog, but he was talking about all these ways that you could improve your health. You know, he called it kick more ass. How do you kick more ass every day? I'm like, hey, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to perform better, train harder, you know, be more successful in everything I do.
Yeah.
So then as I got into it, I realized, wow, there's really no systems to measure what we're doing here. And then I go to my other job in IT, and there's like every tool known to man out there to study a computer system. The human body is a computer system. It's generating tons of data points. So that's when I said, okay, how do we make a system to do the measurement? And then it's just been a journey ever since to build it, because you got to figure out how to go build it, because it's going to cost $20-30 million to build it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
To do it properly. So then you have to figure out, I don't have $30 million in my bank. So then you have to figure out, okay, so how does a person go raise money to start a business? If you've never done that before, then that's a whole nother world. That's not even building the software. That's like speaking the language of finance. So those are all the things that I've been working on over the last like seven years on the journey.
Wow, that's amazing. And for the app, so it takes, you know, your lab tests over the years. Mm-hmm. What if, you know, you just started with the app and you're like, I don't really have access to my old lab work. Is there a way that, you know, you can get it? Like, how would people do that?
Well, in the United States, doctors are required by law to give you access to all your historical data. So one of the first things I did was I called my old doctors from when I was going to grad school in Boston. I'm like, hey, can you send me the blood work? I think I had like one checkup. But that was the oldest data I could find from 2005.
Yeah.
So they just mailed me a copy and I put that into the system. So that was like as far back as I could see, 2005. So the way to do it would be to contact old doctors, see what you can get your hands on. If you don't have anything, at least here in the United States, you can go order your own blood tests online.
True.
So just get a base panel. It's cheap, $100, $200, depends how many tests you want to get, and get your baseline data. So even if you have none, like just start there, and then get an O-ring. Start measuring your sleep quality. Get a DEXA scan or an in-body scan. Those give you really good like body composition data. Get a biological age test, and then go to town.
Nice.
You got your baseline numbers now, so even if you have nothing, you can get it. It's very accessible now. When I started building this software, you couldn't even order your own blood tests in the US. We take that for granted now.
True.
You had to go to the doctor, and they're only gonna order what is medically necessary, which in most cases, they're never going to do a full thyroid panel for you.
Exactly. I had to literally beg my doctor to do the test for me.
And now it's like, okay, I'm just going to go to like requestatest.com and I can do this for $100 and I don't have to fight with insurance or the doctor or any of this crap.
And it gives you so much power over your own health, which is what we should have, right?
Yeah. And, you don't have to be a medical expert to understand this information.
Yeah.
I may not know every single blood test and what they all mean and like how to interpret a CBC panel, but I know enough to say these are the important numbers and I can look and see how they're tracking over time.
Yeah.
And that's really about it. And then you work with a coach or you work with a functional doctor or a longevity doctor, and they'll give you that next level of interpretation on the data.
That makes a lot of sense. And so in your opinion, what do you think are the most important blood tests that we should be asking our doctors for or getting our own tests for?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. I think assuming there are no underlying medical conditions, like you're just starting with the blank slate.
Right.
For example, I think that having good measurements of metabolic health is very important. So that would be like your fasting glucose, it'd be your fasting insulin, and your hemoglobin A1C. I think those will give you some really good, like, how's my blood sugar, my endocrine system doing?
Yeah.
Male or female, I think it's important to also just get hormone levels checked.
Yes.
Like for me, looking at like, testosterone panel, for example, male hormone panel. Because as you age, those numbers tend to decline.
Yes.
And so maybe there's ways you want to supplement and bring your levels back up again. So hormones, metabolic health, cardiovascular health. So really good, detailed, advanced lipid panel would be good. And then vitamin D3, of course,
yes.
I think is always
Huge
a good one because we don't get outside enough. I think, in this community we probably do, but
Miami
and biohackers in general, we inherently understand that, like, there's vitamin D. Okay, I can take a supplement, but there's also the kind that comes from the sun. So I think a vitamin D would be super important. And from there, I think the longer tail of the tests are going to depend on your genetics.
Yeah.
That, like for me, I have a methylation genetic defect.
Yes.
And so for me, that will lead to elevated homocysteine, cardiovascular marker, simple blood test.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm regularly testing homocysteine. Yeah. For you, you might not need to test that. So then it gets a little more individualized beyond kind of like that long tail.
Yeah, that's great. And so final question, do you have a personal wellness practice or biohacking practice that you think is super important and you found life-changing?
Oh, man. Personal practice?
Yes.
Well, I think for me, everything starts with having a grounded spiritual presence.
Yeah.
So that to me is the root. So that can mean whatever you want it to mean. That could mean organized religion, it could mean meditation, it could be something that connects you to yourself. All biohacking stems from that, in my opinion. So for me, that means I am making sure that I am doing my meditation.
Yeah.
Which just means sit there, close my eyes, set a timer, put some music on, and just go inward. So I'm not successful at that every single day, especially doing all the craziness. But if I'm getting in like 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 20 minutes, either in the morning or before bed. So that's part of my routine. Also, very precise blood sugar control. So I wear a continuous glucose monitor. Oh, wow. I keep blood sugar in check. My favorite biohacks, I do hyperbaric oxygen regularly.
Really?
And then there's a place by my house where I can go do cryotherapy, infrared sauna, cold plunge, red light. I do them in that sequence. It takes me an hour. It's incredible.
Oh, wow. I do the infrared sauna and the red light. I haven't tried the cryogenics.
It's not for everybody.
Hyperbaric.
Here's the thing about cold plunge, okay? If you can get in a tub at 38 degrees and survive for 3 to 5 minutes, okay? There is nothing else you will encounter in life that is going to be harder than that. So you basically set your pain threshold up here.
Yeah.
And then anything life throws at you, you're like, this is nowhere near as hard as getting through that first 2 minutes in the tub. So it kind of is like a threshold reset. Now there's lots of great benefits of cold, but for me it's the psychological benefits.
Yeah.
You know, in yogic practices they call it, I think the word is Ishnan. You'll have to quote, I think, and that means exposing yourself to cold. And the way it's explained by the yogis is if you can survive that first 2 minutes of shock in the water, then you can survive anything, including death. Wow.
I might have to work up to that.
First time I tried it, honestly, I could get to my knees, and then I ran out like a girl. And then the next time I went in, I could get up to the waist. And then the next time I went, I'm like, okay, I went. Wow. So you have to condition yourself. Yeah. And now I can just drop right in and sit there for 5 minutes and like not even flinch. But
wow,
you got to build up to that. So those are some of my favorites that I do just to like really optimize.
That is super cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and then make sure the sleep data is optimal.
Yes.
I think Brian Johnson, he's like, learn how to be a professional sleeper. That is the best longevity advice you can get.
Sleep is so underrated.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, David. This was an awesome conversation.
Likewise, thank you.
Definitely check out Heads Up Health. Super cool concept.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Unlock your full potential at the Biohackers World Conference and Expo in Los Angeles on March 29th and 30th. Connect with leaders in health optimization, learn the secrets to longevity, boost your performance, and dive into the latest biohacking and wellness innovations. Don't miss out. Tickets are going fast.